Welcome to the Ultimate React course. In this course, we are going to learn React from its basis to more advanced concepts. So we will start with how React works, why React is so popular, understanding of Babel and JSX, building components, adding events, state variables, important hooks, accessing local storage, React strict mode, filtering and sorting data, searching with auto suggestions, routing and navigation using most popular library React Router DOM. After that, we will also see calling APIs, handling errors, showing loader functionality, managing and validate the form, pagination, infinite scrolling, user authentication and authorization with JSON Web Token, which is very important, calling protected APIs, creating the context, and much more. If you are absolute beginner to React, you might don't know about these concepts. So let me show you the implementation of these concepts. So by using these concepts, we will build 3 real-world React applications. First one is Task Manager application, and we can say its difficulty to basic. In this application, user can manage their daily task. So by using this form, we can add task with selecting the tags, and according to this status, it will display here. And also, we can remove this task from our application. So it can be best project for beginners. Now let me show you our second project, which is movie application. And the amazing thing about this project is this data is real, which we are getting from another website. Also from here, we can filter our movie list, and also we can sort it by date and rating, and also ascending and descending. So we can say it's difficulty level to intermediate. Now let me show you our third project. This project is very exciting. So we will build an e-commerce application which looks like this. You can see how beautiful this looks. In this project, we will implement many advanced concepts like routing, calling an API, infinite scrolling, sorting products by price or rating, searching products with auto suggestions, authentication like sign up, login and logout, managing our shopping cart, and much more. And after completing this project, I will show you the deployment process of React application. Now you might ask, who am I? I am a software engineer and also teach programming in easy to explain language using my YouTube channel, God bless you, and with my online courses. Also, I will give you many tips and tricks which will help you a lot for creating better React applications. After completing this course, you will write React code with more confidence and using best techniques. I know you are excited to learn and build fast React applications. So let's jump in and dive into this course. Welcome to the first section of the Ultimate React course. Now before we start learning React, let's properly understand what is React. So React is an open source JavaScript library used for building front-end applications. In simple words, with React, we can create fast and better front-end applications. React was created by Facebook in 2011, and currently it is the most popular and most used JavaScript front-end library. Also, there are other JavaScript libraries like Angular and Vue, but they are not as better as React. So if you are looking for a job as front-end developer or full-stack developer, you should know how to create better and fast application with React. Now you might ask, what is special about React? Why React is so popular? So before React was created, when our web page loaded in a browser, our browser creates tree-like structure with our HTML code. This tree structure called as Document Object Model, or in short, DOM. Now by using this DOM in JavaScript, we can add various functionality for our application, like hiding the sidebar on button click, handling form inputs, etc. So here is the example of hiding sidebar on button click event. This is the code of vanilla JavaScript, which means pure JavaScript code without using any external tools. Now imagine if we create large-scale applications like Instagram or Amazon with vanilla JavaScript. Then how many lines of code we need to write? And even if we manage to write that long code, our code will become messy and hard to manage. Now at that time, React comes in the picture. So with React, we don't need to worry about writing vanilla JavaScript code. Instead of that, we will divide our application in small piece of code. This small piece of code is called as components, and then React will take care about writing simple code for creating and updating DOM. So components is used to write reusable and better organized code. Let me explain you with the example. So here we have our project 3, which is e-commerce application. Here we can see we have navbar, and at the right side of the navbar, we have couple of links for different pages. So we can separately create navbar component, and in that component, we can also add component for these links. And then we can reuse it multiple times for navbar links. Now in the products page, we have sidebar, and here we have the list of products. So we create another 2 components, sidebar and products list. Now in this product list, we have couple of product cards. So we can define another component for product cart and then reuse it multiple times in this product list. So we build all these components individually and then combine them to build our page. So by creating small components, we can easily manage our code and our application also work fast. Also, with React, we can create single page application, which means our application loads only one time, and then all pages comes without reloading the entire page, and that will make our application almost 50% faster than normal HTML, CSS and JavaScript applications. Now another reason why React is so fast is React has virtual DOM feature. Now this is the topic by which many developers get confused, but it is really simple. So let me explain you with one example. Imagine you have a jigsaw puzzle on your table. It's a beautiful landscape picture and it contains of many puzzle pieces that fit together to form the complete picture. Each puzzle piece represents a different part of your web page, like a header, a sidebar, or a main content section. Now let's say you have a magical assistant called Virtual Puzzle Solver. This assistant has an exact copy of your jigsaw puzzle, but it's virtual, not real. Now whenever you want to make a change to your puzzle, you describe the changes to your Virtual Puzzle Solver instead of directly manipulating the real puzzle pieces. For example, you might say, "Hey Virtual Puzzle Solver, I want to move the blue piece from the bottom right corner to the top left corner." Instead of physically moving the puzzle piece on the real table, your assistant quickly looks at its own copy and then figure out the changes needed and tells you, "Alright, just remove the blue piece from the bottom right and add it to the top left." So now you make those changes on the real puzzle based on your assistant's instructions. The benefit is your Virtual Puzzle Solver can quickly identify which pieces you need to move to complete the updated picture without you manually rearranging every piece. In this example, the real jigsaw puzzle represents the real DOM, and the Virtual Puzzle Solver represents the virtual DOM in React. Now let's apply this concept to React's virtual DOM. So when you build a web page with React, it maintains a virtual representation of your web page, and it is called as virtual DOM. Whenever you want to update your web page, you describe the changes to the virtual DOM instead of directly modifying the real DOM. React's virtual DOM efficiently compares the new virtual DOM with the previous one, same as your Virtual Puzzle Solver quickly identifying which puzzle pieces need to move on its own puzzle. After that, React knows exactly which part of real DOM need to change to match the new virtual DOM. By using this virtual DOM approach, React optimizes the process of updating the real DOM, which means it only applies the necessary changes, making your web page more efficient and responsive, especially when there are frequent updates or interactions happening. In summary, as the virtual puzzle solver makes updating the real jigsaw puzzle more manageable, React's virtual DOM makes updating the real DOM smoother and more efficient. And also, it enhances the performance and user experience for your web application. So that's it for the theory. For now, don't worry about all of this. You will understand these concepts when we create multiple projects. Now let's set up our development environment for this course. So first of all, we need Node.js. One thing I want to specify, we are just using one part of Node.js, which is npm, called as Node Package Manager. This npm is used to install React applications and some additional features. So head over to nodejs.org and download the latest stable version of Node.js from here. Click on it and the download will start. And I have one suggestion. If you already have Node.js installed in your system, then please remove that version and install the latest version of Node. Now open this setup and click on Next. Accept the terms. Next. Again Next. 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 And install. And see, installation process is started. And it's done. So we successfully installed Node.js in our system. Now let's verify this. So open command prompt in Windows, or if you are Mac user, then open terminal and write node-v and hit enter. If you successfully install Node.js, then you will see this version. If you get something, Node is not recognized as an internal or external command, then you have to install Node again. After that, write npm-v and hit enter. And we also get this version. Lovely. Now the next thing we need for this course is VS Code, which is one of the best code editor, and almost 95% developers use VS Code. So head over to code.visualstudio.com and install it. It is extremely easy. Now open VS Code, and for making our coding experience good, we will install some extensions. So go to this external panel and first we search ES7 React Snippets and install this extension. This is one of the best extensions for writing React.js code fast. After that, we have another cool extension called Prettier. This is the extension every developer uses in VS Code. Prettier will format your code in very organized manner. So install this extension. Nice. Now we have to do little settings for installation of Prettier. So in the installation section, scroll down to the default formatter section and copy this first line of code. Now open up settings and at the top right corner, open setting.json file and paste this line at the end. Save this file. Now back to setting and search format on save. Enable this and done. Now one more thing, many students ask for my VS Code theme. So search AYU and install this theme extension. Now click on this settings and go to code theme and set it to AU border. And that's it. Our environment is ready. Now in the next lesson, we will create our first React application. So there are two ways to create React applications. First, we can use create React app or we can use White. create React app is the old and takes more time to create. We will use white for creating the new React applications. So first of all, create one folder in which you want to practice React and open that folder in the command prompt. And if you are Mac user, then open folder in terminal. Now write npm create white @latest and hit enter. OK to proceed. Write y and hit enter. Now write here your application name. I write first application and hit enter. Now here we need to select the framework. So we select React and hit enter. Now here we can select JavaScript or TypeScript. Don't worry about that, just simply select JavaScript and hit enter. And in just a second, our application is ready. This creates a basic React template, so we don't need to create React application from scratch. This command will give us a quick React template. Now here, we need to write these three commands. So first, we have to go inside our application by write cd, press tab and hit enter. Now write npm install and hit enter. This command will install all packages that are needed to create a React application like Webpack, which is used to bundle different files in one file. Another important package is Babel. This package is used to convert JSX, which is the modern JavaScript code, with HTML code. So Babel converts that JSX into simple JavaScript code which browsers can understand. Don't worry, I will show you that in this section. Now simply write code dot and hit enter. This command will open current folder in VS Code. So we can close this terminal. We don't need this. Now to run this React application in our system, we open terminal by pressing Ctrl plus backtick or Command plus backtick and just write npm run dev and hit enter. This command will take some time, and here we get our application link of localhost. So hold Ctrl or Command and click on this link. It will open our application in our browser. So this is what React Starter Pack look like. And see, it is running at localhost 5173. So we successfully create our React application. Now in the next lesson, we will write first code in our React application. First of all, let's understand what we get in this React template. So first, we get node modules folder. In this folder, we have all packages installed for our application. Without these node modules, we can't run our React application. But don't worry, we don't even touch this folder. The funny part is, when I create 2 to 3 projects in React, I don't even know what is this node modules folder does. So in short, node modules is the folder where our all installed packages and libraries stay. Next, we have the public folder. This public folder contains static assets that is served directly to the client. For example, here we have white.svg, which is our fav icon. Let me show you. So here, in our browser tab, we can see our fav icon. After that, we have src folder, which means source folder. This is the folder in which we spend our almost all time for writing code. Here, we first have assets folder. In this folder, we will put all our images, icons, fonts, etc. which we are going to use in our components. Next, we have bunch of files. First one is app.jsx, which is the root component of our application, which means this is the starting point of our component chain. Note that this .jsx is the extension of React component. It is almost similar to .js. We will see the difference in upcoming lessons. For now, let's open these and see how components looks like. So all React components have this basic structure. At the top, we import some files like other components, CSS files, or we import objects from packages or logo, images and all. After that, we have one function which has the same name as our component name. In this case, this is app. Now this function always returns something which looks similar to HTML markup. But note that this is not the original HTML markup. This is called as JSX, which stands for JavaScript XML. So using this JSX, we can write HTML and JavaScript code together. And this is the heart of React. So this is the part which decides how our website look like, and this code output is this, what we are seeing in our browser. And also, JSX syntax is similar to HTML markup. So we can easily write code in JavaScript in less code. And at the end, in every component, we export that component as default, so we can use that in another file or component. Now, as you told before, Babel library take this JSX code and convert it into simple JavaScript code that our browser can understand. After that, we have app.css file, which is used to style the app.jsx file markup, and also that we import at the top of app component. Next, we have main.jsx file, which is the most important file of React. And this is the file which connects our components with our index.html file, which we have here. Don't worry, it is the same as we have our HTML file. This is the main HTML file which is running in our browser. Let me show you. So I change here this title to my first React app. Save this file, and in browser, see, here we get our updated title. And also, we don't need to refresh our page like HTML. React automatically reload our application when we save our file, and this is very cool, right? Now with that, we have fav icon which we see previously. Now scroll down to the body section and see, here we have only two tags. First one is div with an ID root. This is the main tag in which our all components will show up. Let me show you. So in our browser, right click on the page and go to inspect. Here you can see we have our div with ID root, and inside this we have our app component. Now after that we have script tag, and here we link our main.jsx file. Let's quickly see how code looks like inside main.jsx file. So at the top we have some imports. Now after that we have lines of code by which we can connect our app component to that div which have ID root. So we have React DOM, which we imported from React DOM/client, and that has one method, createRoot, and inside this it targets the root div by document.getElement by ID. After that, this root variable has one method called render, and inside this we passes the component which we want to show in that root div. Don't worry about this. In the next lesson, we will write all this code from scratch. Now after source folder, we have gitignore file in which we can define which files or folder will not upload on GitHub. Next, we have package.json file which has the all information about our application. You can see here name, version, and in this dependencies array, we have bunch of packages which are installed with installation, and also we have their version. So if in future we lost our node modules folder, then by using this package.json file, we can recreate our node modules. Now also, we have scripts, which are shortcuts for these commands. For example, previously we used npm run dev for running our application. So internally, that runs this react strip dev command. Now after that, we have package-log.json, which is essentially used to log the dependency to a specific version number. And at last, we have white.config.js file, which is the configuration object of our application. For now, we don't need to worry about these other files. Primarily, our focus is on how to build fast and best React applications. Now let's write code from scratch. So the reason why I want you to write code from scratch is because I want to show you how React components connect to the root element. So first of all, delete the full source folder. We will build that from scratch. Now create a new folder called src, and inside this we create a new file called main.jsx. And do you remember what this main.jsx file does? Right, it will declare the root component, or we can say what we want to show in this div with id root. Now at the top, we import some objects from library, and using that objects, we can connect our application with index.html file. So first, import React object from React library. If you are not familiar with this import or any JavaScript concepts, then don't worry, just write this code as I write, because in the next section, we understand all useful concepts of JavaScript which we are using in React. Next, we import React DOM from React DOM/client. Now in the next line, we create one variable, const. Again, this is ES6 JavaScript feature, and I will show you that in the next section. So const, and give your variable name, let's say my first element. You can take whatever you want to, it's totally up to you. Equals to, here we write h1 tag, this is my first element, and close the h1 tag. Note that this is not the HTML markup, this is JSX, which looks like HTML because we didn't add any JavaScript. Now after that, we'll display this element in our root div. So write react DOM dot create root, and inside this method, we have to target our div with root ID. So document dot get element by ID, and pass here root in double quotes. And at last, we have to declare which element or component we want to display. So we write dot render, and inside this we pass our element, my first element. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our text, this is my first element. Now let's verify this is inside our root div or not. So right click on the text and go to inspect. And you can see it is in our root div. So it's working. Congratulations, you created your first React app. Now here we add this element, but in the real React application, we will add here our app component. Don't worry about that, I promise you will comfortable with React soon. And don't try to understand every topic in one go, because with practice, you will understand each topic. Welcome to the React Basics section. In this section, you will learn some of the basic concepts which are very important in React. So we start with building components, understanding JSX and Babel, adding elements, adding JavaScript expression, attributes, events. After that, most important concept of React, which is state, and also one of the most used hook, useState, handling inputs, mapping list, and much more. I am very excited about this section and hope you are too, because using these concepts, we are going to build our first application in the next section. So let's make most out of this. Let's first of all create a brand new application which we are going to use in our first project. So open up command prompt or terminal in your folder in which you want to create this application. And do you remember how to create React application? Right, using npm create white @latest. Now write our application name, which is TaskCard, and hit. Make sure we always write our application name in small case and without any underscore. Otherwise, it will give us error. Now here we select React application, and after that, we select JavaScript variant. Good. Now let's run these 3 commands. So first of all, we have to change directory by cd and press tab 2 times. Now let's install all packages and library by using npm install. And it's done. Now let's open this new project in VS Code. So we write code space period. This will open VS Code in this directory. Let's close this command prompt. We don't need this. Great. Now let's verify we successfully set up our application or not. So open up terminal by using Ctrl plus backtick or Command plus backtick and simply write npm run dev and hit enter. See, we get this React template, and that means we successfully set up our application. Now in this lesson, we will build our first React component. So to quick recap, the component is reusable piece of code that used to define certain part of user interface. So here in the source folder, we create a new folder called components. So in this folder, we store all components of our application except our root component, which is this app component. Now in this folder, we create a new file called card.jsx or JS. Now you might have question, what is the difference between JSX and JS extension? First of all, we can write any extension because they both work same. But generally, we use JSX extension because when our application grow, we may have to write some JavaScript code, and at that time, this JSX extension will tell you which file is React component and which file is just vanilla JavaScript code. Also, when we use .jsx, our code editor can give us better service like syntax suggestion, error checking, to write JSX code. But some developers also use .js extension, and if you are working on single project with multiple developers, then you have to use the same extension that they are already using. So here we use .jsx. These are the little details which many experienced developers doesn't know, and interviewer like to ask this kind of question. So you can note this point. And one more thing, always write component name with capital letter. Otherwise, it will not work in browser. I will tell you reason in the upcoming lesson. Now in this component, at the top, we have to import React from React package. After that, we have to define here function or class which will return JSX. So these are 2 types of React components, functional components and class components. Class components are little old for current time, because for implementing class components, we have to learn some of the advanced concepts of JavaScript. And also, class component is little complex than functional component. When Facebook developed React first time, there are only one component type, which is class component. But as React develops, it adds functional components, and that makes React very simple and easy. So currently, almost all developers switch to functional component, and that's why I decided to create this course using functional components. So here we define function with the same name of our component, which is card. And inside this function, we will simply return h1 tag with text, let's say card component. Note that we can also create function by using arrow function syntax. And that's it. We create our first React component. You can see how simple it is to create React component. Just we have to import React from React library, and after that one function with component name and return the element which we want to display. Now let's verify this works or not. So as we know, we have to add this component in main.jsx file render method. So for that, we have to export this card function from this card component. Do you remember how we export function from the module? Right, by using export keyword. You are doing really great. So write export, and this card function is our main method, so we can export default and write here function name card. Save this, and now we have to import this card function in main.jsx file. So here, after this app import, we import card from, and in quotes, we have to pass our file path. So period slash components slash card. Now at the place of this app component, we simply pass card component. Save this file and take a look. See, here we get our h1 tag with text. So this is really simple to create components in React. If you are little confused, don't worry, with practice you will master React. When I first started learning React, I was also confused, but I kept learning and most important, practicing. Now here, I have one shortcut trick for creating the basic structure of components in just 1 second. Make sure you install the ES7 React Snippets extension. This is necessary for that. So we remove this complete code and just write here RAFCE, which stands for React Arrow Function Component with Export, and press tab. See, here we get the boilerplate for React components. By using these, we don't need to manually type this import, function, and export statements again and again. Press escape for single cursor and write here card component. Save the changes and take a look. See, it works the same. Now you might ask, why don't I show you this shortcut at the beginning? So the reason is, I want to explain you the complete structure of creating components. If I first show you this trick, then you cannot understand components properly. And I bet you understand creating component very well. Now let me give you a little exercise. You have to create another React component called create to do and return simple text create new to do from here in h1 tag. I am sure you can complete this exercise. Now before we start our next lesson, let me show you solution of previous exercise really quick. So in this components folder, we create a new file called create-to-do.jsx, and inside this component, we write RAFCE and press tab, and our component is ready. Now press escape, and at the place of this div, we return h1 tag and create new to do from here. Save this, and in main.jsx file, we import create to do, and we can also see suggestions here. Select the suggestion, and this will import our component from our folder. Now we simply pass here create to do. Save the changes and see, here we get our create to do component. If you can't complete this exercise, then also don't worry, you can again watch the previous lesson. It is okay, there is no pressure at all. Now in the previous lesson, we create our component and we also return code looks the same as HTML code. But as I told you before, this is not HTML code, it is JSX, which is modern code for writing HTML and JavaScript together. We seen this in section 1, but that is just a little introduction. Now let's understand how it works internally. So as you may know, our browser can't understand JSX code, but it can understand vanilla JavaScript code. So we have to convert our JSX code in vanilla JavaScript code so our browser can understand it. So for that, we need a compiler called Babel. It will convert our JSX code into plain JavaScript code which browsers can understand and render. Let me show you that practically. So in our browser, open a new tab and head over to babeljs.io and go to this try it out section. So here we can write our modern JavaScript code and Babel will convert that code into JavaScript code which browsers can understand. So here we simply write const heading equals to h1 tag and pass here string, this is JSX. And see, here we get this code. So our JSX convert into this JSX function. Now first argument of this method is h1, which is our element type. And the second argument is the object which have property called children. Basically, children is what we pass inside our element. Now here we can also pass class attribute equals to main heading and see, here we get class property in this object. So for developers, writing code using JSX is more simple and easy instead of writing this vanilla JavaScript code. So in short, we always use JSX for our components and Babel will compile our code into this JSX function. And that's the reason we don't have to compulsory import React library at the top. But before React 18 update, we need to import React at the top. Now you might think, how can we see the old method of react.createElement? So here in this option, we have React runtime. By default, it is set to automatic, which is this JSX function, and we can change that to classic. And see, here we get this old method of transforming JSX code into JavaScript code using react.createElement method. If you want to read more on this topic, then you can read this article. I will attach official documentation link. So that's how JSX and Babel works in React application. Now in this lesson, we will add some elements in our component. So after this heading tag, we want to add one button. So we add button called add task. Now here we get error in our JSX expression. Let's hover this and see, we get JSX expression must have one parent element. Now you might think, why? So in the previous lesson, I show you JSX expression is converted in JSX runtime function. And also, we have seen react.createElement method. In this both method, here we can only specify one element. So if we write multiple elements in JSX, Babel will get confused which element should pick. So in JSX, we always add elements in one parent element. So we add here div and move our code between this div. Save the changes and see, prettier format our code in structured manner. So that's why developers love prettier so much. And prettier also add this parenthesis and semicolon here. That's because of JavaScript auto semicolon insertion. For example, if we have only written and nothing else in that line, then JavaScript automatically put semicolon here. Let me show you. So we move our JSX into next line, and now if we save this file, see, JavaScript add here semicolon, and because of that, these next lines will never get executed. So that's why prettier add here parentheses. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get heading and button. Let's inspect it so we can also see the markup. So here in the root div, we get our div, and inside this div, we have our elements. Now sometimes we don't want to add this unwanted div for every React components. So let's see another method for adding multiple elements. So in React, we have one method called fragment. This fragment is used to add parent element in our JSX, but it will not return any UI component on browser. Let me show you what I means. So at the place of this div, we write react.fragment. Now if you wonder how I changed this opening and closing tags together, it's because I am using this auto rename tag extension. You can also install this extension for increase your typing speed. And here are the current installed extension which I use, so you can also check them. This material icon theme is for icons theme. I like that a lot. Now back to our topic, add React fragment as parent element. Save the changes and take a look. See, in the inspect, we have here only our two elements without that unwanted div. Now also, there is one more shortcut and easy method to add React fragments. So we can simply remove this react.fragment, and that's it. These empty tags are also works the same as React fragments. Save the changes and see, it works the same. So in the previous lesson, we had multiple HTML elements in our JSX. Now let's see how to add a JavaScript expression or code into JSX. So instead of showing this text, we want to show total number of tasks, like this. Now this 0 is hard-coded, but we want to show the actual number of tasks dynamically. So just for demo, before our return statement, we create one variable called task equals to, let's say, 5. Now how can we show this task variable at the place of this hard-coded number? And the answer is very simple. So remove this number and add here curly brackets, and between these curly brackets, we can add any valid JavaScript expression. So we add here task variable, save the changes, and see, here we get 5. Let's change this task to 0, and also we can add text at the beginning or after these curly brackets. Save these and see, here we get task 0. So between these curly brackets, we can write any JavaScript expression. This expression should return a value which will display at that position. For example, if we write here only true and save this, here we get nothing. So if we do not want to display anything, then why we write here that expression in JSX? So that's why I am telling you to add expression which returns a value, or we can even call function which can return a value. So after this task, we create one function called countTask, arrow function, and inside this, we return this task variable. And at the place of this task, we call countTask function. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get 0 again. Now let's make this code little interesting as an exercise. So in this function, when this task variable is set to 0, we want to show a message no task available, else we display current task number. This is really pretty simple. I hope you can do that. Hint is, we can remove this task text and return complete string from this function. So spend some time on this exercise and after that you can watch the solution. So first of all, in this function, we add condition if task equals to 0, then we return no task available, and else we return string using template string. If you don't know that, in template string we can access variable with string. Just see these, we add backticks, task, colon, and to access variable we add dollar, curly brackets, and task. Now let's remove this task from JSX, we don't need that. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get no task available, and if we change our task to 2, and see, we get here task 2. You can see how simple it is. I know you completed this exercise, or at least you tried to solve that, so take credit for that. Now let me show you shortcut trick for writing this same code. So I comment out this code, and at the place of using if-else, we use ternary operators which we have seen in previous section. So write return, and first we add condition task equals to 0. Now add question mark for true and return here no task available. After that colon for false and return here backticks task colon dollar curly brackets task. Save these and see, it works the same as before. We can test it by changing its value to 0. And see, we get no task available. Now let's see how we can add attributes in these elements. It is really simple. We can do that same as we do in HTML. For example, we want to add here value property for this button. So we simply add here value equals to add task button. Now let's make this button disabled dynamically. So in our function, we define a new variable called hide button equals to true. Now when this hide button variable is set to true, we disable our add task button. So here we write disable equals to, now to access variable, we add curly brackets and pass here hide button. Save these and see, our button is disabled. And if we set our variable to false, then our button is enabled. So that's how we use simple and dynamic attributes inside elements. Now let me ask you one question. How can we pass class attribute for elements? You might say class equals to and we pass class name here. But that will give us warning. So let's save these and open console. See, here we get this warning, invalid DOM property, class, and it also gives us suggestion, did you mean class name? So in JSX, we have to use class name attribute instead of using simple class. But why? So as I told you before, this JSX expression convert in simple JavaScript object, and in that object, if we use class attribute, and in JavaScript, class keyword already reserved. So that's why in React, we use class name at the place of class attribute. Now another important and different attribute is styles, which used to specify an inline style for an element. So in plain HTML, we write something like this, style equals to, and in double quotes, we write our styles, let's say color to red. Save these and see, we get here error which says we have to use here values, not a string. So in JSX, we have to set this style attribute to plain JavaScript object which contains styles. So at the top, we create one object called styles equals to object. Now we have to pass all CSS properties in camel case notation, which means except first letter, every first letter of new word is capital. For example, if we want to add background color, then we write background and new word which is color with capital C and pass value to red. I know this is little confusing, but don't worry, 99% time we don't even use these inline styles. Now let's pass this styles object in this style attribute. So for that, we add here curly brackets because we are adding JavaScript and add here styles object. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get this red background. Now some developers don't define this object separately. They add it directly in these curly brackets. Let me show you. So we cut this object from here and paste it at this styles object. So these first two curly brackets are for accessing JavaScript, and for style we have to pass object, which is another curly brackets. And that's make these inline styles very confusing and hard to manage, and that's why we usually don't use inline styles in JSX. So let's remove these inline styles and also remove this styles variable. Now let's talk about how we can define or handle events in React. So handling events in React is very similar to handling events in HTML. Let's first of all clean our component. So we remove this constant, accept this task, and also remove this function, and remove this h1 element, and between these we pass task, curly brackets, task, and also remove this disable property. Perfect. Now as I told you, all React elements has events based on HTML events. For example, here we want to add click event on this add task button. So here we have on click and we also have on double click. So add here on click event equals to, and in curly brackets. Now can you tell me why we are adding here curly brackets? Right, it's because we have to add here JavaScript expression. In this case, we will add function which runs on this button click. Now in React, we have popular naming convention for handling events. So we create all events methods name start with handle. So by just looking the function or method name, we can say this is for handling this event. So here we create function called handle. If we are handling double click, then this name will be handle double click. And also notice that most of the time we use camel case notation. So handle click, arrow function, and inside this function, we simply console.log add task. Now we have to pass this function reference in this on click event. So right here handle click. Save the changes and take a look. Click on this button and see we are getting add task message. Now make sure we don't call this function, because if we call that function here, then it will only run when these components get rendered on the browser. Now in this function, we want to increment the number of tasks. So for that, first of all, we have to make this constant to let, because we want to reassign its value. And in our function, here we simply write task plus plus. Save the changes and take a look. Click on add task button and you can see task counts are not updating on page, but we are getting this add task message. It means function is working fine. So let's check this task value is increasing or not. So after this message, we add comma and add task variable. Save these and refresh this page. Click on the button and you can see values are increasing, but it will not reflect on the web page. And that's the topic of next lesson. So in the previous lesson, we saw our task value is increasing, but it's not updating on DOM. So when we want to display something change on our DOM, then we can't define that variable or object or array as the normal JavaScript variable. So for displaying the change on DOM, we have state in React. This state allows us to manage and display the changing data in our application. So when we define our variable as normal JavaScript variable, then React will not reflect that changes if we change that variable value. But if we define our variable as state, then React will reflect that changes if we change that variable value. So in simple words, state is used to tell React what's this variable, and if it change, then reflect that change on the DOM. So as we know, React has virtual DOM. So when we change the state of one component, React gets this new component and compare this new component with the old component, and then only reflect those changes on the real DOM. Simple as that. So state is very important concept of React, and many beginner developers struggle with this concept. But don't worry, your all doubts will clear when you see this practically. So now you might ask, how can we define a variable as a state? So to define variable as a state in functional component, we have to use one hook. But before using hook, let's understand what is hook. So what are hooks? Hooks are the functions to use some React features in functional components. In other words, we can say that hooks are functions that make functional components work like class components. I know this sounds little complicated, but it's not. Let's understand with the story. Before React launched hooks, there is only one way to use state and lifecycle methods by using the class components. Now developers had some problems with class components, such as class are a bit difficult, especially for those who just started to React. Confusing with this keyword, and we have to write all boilerplate again and again when we create a new component. So React takes some time to develop special functions that we can use in functional component, and that special functions are called as hooks. So I think now you understand what is React hooks, which are functions that make functional components work like class components. And nowadays, hooks are very important concept of React, which every React developers needs to learn. Now in the next lesson, we will see the first hook, which is used to define variable as a state. Now let's define this task as the state variable. So for defining state, we have one hook called useState. And this is one of the most important and most used hook in React. So to use any hook, first we need to import that hook from the React library. And also, all hooks name start with the prefix use. So all those functions that start with use are React hooks. So at the top, after this React, we add comma, and in curly brackets, we import useState. Now in our functional component, we call this useState hook, and inside this, we have to pass default value of the variable, which is 0, because we want to set task as 0. Now this function will return an array. So let's store that in variable called countArray. And after that, let's simply console.log this countArray to just see what is inside this array. Save the changes and take a look. See, this array has two elements. The first element is our original value, which is 0, and the second element is one function. Let me show you. So first of all, we store first element countArray index 0 in variable called count. And now let's display this state variable on web page. So here, I am not removing this normal variable because I want to show you the difference. So we duplicate this line by pressing Shift plus Alt plus down arrow in Windows and Shift plus option plus down arrow in Mac. These are little tricks which will increase your overall speed. Now at the place of this task variable, here we add count. Save these and see, this both looks the same. Now let's see how we can update this count state value. So for updating the state value, we have function as second element in this useState. So back to VS Code and we store this count as second element in variable called setCount. This is the common naming convention for useState. So value of the state we called as normal variable name, and function which can set the value of that variable, we add set prefix for that function name. For example, count, setCount, loading, setLoading, etc. Now whatever value we pass in this setCount function, it will be the value of this count variable. Let me show you what I means. So here, we want to increase this count by 1 when we click on this add task button. So we write setCount, and inside this, we want current value, which is count, and plus 1. So when we click on this button, first it will get the current value of count and then add 1 in it. And this setCount function will set this value, which is 0 plus 1, as this count. Simple as that. Save the changes and take a look. Click on this button and see, count state is increasing by 1, but task variable are still same, and also tasks are always stay to 1. Why? Because when any state change in our component, whole components gets re-rendered, or we can say run again. And that's why task is always stay at 1. Don't worry, we will understand that re-rendering in detail in upcoming section. And another thing, if we refresh the page, this count again start with 0, because here we set default value as 0. If we pass here 5, then on refresh, we get here 5. So now let's remove this task variable and also remove this h1 tag. Now here, our code looks little bit ugly because we can see for creating one state variable, we have to write 3 lines of code. Imagine if we have 3 to 4 state variables, then how messy our code looks. So let's make this code shorter using array destructuring. Let me show you. So I comment out these 3 lines and we write here useState, and inside this we pass default value to 0. Now let's store this in variable, and at the place of variable name we add square brackets, and inside that first write the first variable name, which is count, and then write function name, which is setCount. So this single line works the same as these 3 lines, and that will make our code clean and easy to maintain. Let's recap this useState hook. So useState is used to create state variables in functional component. So to use the useState hook, we need to first import that and use it inside the functional component. Here we can pass any type of data like boolean, number, text, object, array, anything, and then store it using array destructuring. The first variable is its current value, and the second variable is the function for updating that value. Simple as that. I know some people gets a little confused here. I was also confused when I learned useState hook for the first time. But with practice, I learned this concept and use that in my projects. Now many times in our application, we have to take user's input. For example, user fill login form or user write something in search bar, then we need to get that input value in our component. So let's create one input with type text. Now when we write something in this input box, we want to display that value. So for that, we add here onChange event, which runs every time when something changes in that input box. same as we do in vanilla JavaScript. So in this onChange event, we add function called handleChange. Now let's define this function. So const handleChange equals to, here we use arrow function. Now in this, we want to console.log current inputted value. So for that, we have to pass here event object, and this event object contains various information about that input field. So write clg for console.log and add here event.target.value. This expression will return the current value of that input box. Save the changes and take a look. Write something and see, here we get these values. So it's working. Now we want to show this current text on our web page. So can you guess what we will use here? Let me give you a little hint. This current value is changing and we need to display that changes. Can we use normal variables? No. Then what we will use? Right. We use useState. Now before using useState, let's remove these 3 lines of code. We don't want that. And also we remove this task and console.log from handleClick function. Now here is the one more thing. We always define our useState hook at the top in our function component, so we can use that state in whole function. So we call here useState, and inside this we pass our default value, and for input we want to set it to empty string. Now let's store this in variable, and we use here array restructuring, input and set input. Now in this handleChange function, at the place of this console.log, we write set input function. Simple as that. Now at the end, let's display the current input. So add another h1 tag and input to curly brackets input. Save the changes and write something here and see, immediately we are getting the current value. So that's how we get value of inputs in React. Now here I have a little bonus for you, and that's the shortcut way to write this useState line. So just write useState. If you are not getting this, then install that ES7 extension which I told you to install in the beginning of this course. So select that and see, here we get template for useState. Now here we get multiple cursor which will change this both name. So write input and press tab. This will automatically write set input in camel case. And pass here default value, empty string, and press escape. And our new state variable is ready. This is the beauty of this extension. So I hope you like this trick. Now in the next lesson, we will see how to display list in React. Now let's see how we can display the list of arrays in React. For example, here we create one array called task. And for now, we just add here task 1, task 2, and task 3. Now here we have to display each task on our web page like this. We add one unordered list, and inside this, we add 3 list items. We have to do that using the map method. So here we have to add curly brackets because we are going to add here JavaScript expression. So task.map, and inside this we get each task, arrow function, and now we simply return here JSX, which is list item. Let me explain you what is happening here. So when we use map method in this single task, first we get this task 1. So we have to display this task string here between this JSX element. So again, we use curly brackets for accessing JavaScript expression inside JSX, and we pass here this task. Simple as that. Now let's add here our unordered list, and inside this we will move our list items. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get this list with all items. If you have doubts about map method, then you can again watch map method lesson in JavaScript Refresher. Now here is a one little issue. In our console, we get this error. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So the reason we are getting this error is because we need to uniquely identify each item of this list. Because if something changes in any of this list item in virtual DOM, then React needs to quickly identify which item changed, and according to that, React needs to update the real DOM. So back to VS Code, and always remember, when we use map method in React, we need to pass unique key for returning element. So we write here key, and here we have to pass a unique dynamic value, which is this task string. So we simply pass this task. Now here, we are using this task string, but in real world application, we have each task object with the unique ID. And at the time, we pass task.id. Don't worry about that, we will also see that in the upcoming sections. And also, note that this key should only need to be unique in this current list. It doesn't mean you can't display this list again in this application, okay? Save the changes and refresh the page, and see, the error is gone. So that's how we map list in React. So congratulations, you successfully run the basic concepts of React. Now using these concepts, we are going to build our first project. I am very excited about this and hope you are too. So see you in the next section. Welcome to the section 4 of the Ultimate React course. In this section, we are going to create our first React application design, in which we will see how the developer thinks before starting to develop the application and how to decide which components to create in our project. In this section, we will not add any functionality to our project. We will just focus on creating components and UI part. So I am really excited about this project and hope you are too, because this kind of project is great starting point for any beginners of React. So let's dive into this project. First of all, let me give you a quick overview of this project called as Task Track. It is a nice name, right? The basic goal of this application is to manage tasks. So this is how our application looks like when we have no task. After that, to add a task, we write the task in this input box. Then we select any tags we want, and also we can deselect them, and then by using this drop down, we can select the task category, to do, doing or done, and then we add task. And the moment we click on this add task button, without refreshing the page, our task is displayed here. We can even add multiple tasks, and if we don't need them, then we can remove this individual task. So this is pretty good and nice project which you can also add to your CV or portfolio. Now before we start building any project, I personally like to plan the process of creating project. And with a plan, we can save a lot of time and effort. And that's the secret why I create projects fast and without writing useless code. It is completely fine if you don't want to follow this process, or you can make your own process. So let me tell you how I think about creating the React project. So first of all, we will create the HTML and CSS part of the application, which means how our application looks without any functionality. Now after our design is ready, then we move to the functionality part, which means if we click on add task, then the task will add in the sections or delete task, etc. Here also we can define some components. For example, here we have this tag design same for many places, and that's the one component. After that, we have this single card component. The skeleton of all cards are same, just we have to change the details, and that's our another component. After that, we have the same design for these three sections. Same, we have to just change the data inside that, but the skeleton is the same. which is our another component. So that's how we can guess the components for React project. But don't worry about that, we can also figure it out while building the design of our project. Just you have to find some design and we can make it as a component. I can see components by just looking at the design because I practice in so many projects, and with practice you will also do that. So don't worry about these things and let's start building our first project. So first of all, we will create the basic layout, or we can say skeleton of our application. So our web page is divided into two sections, the header and the main. And in the main section, we have three subsections. So let's create this layout. So back to VS Code, and first of all, we will reset all the predefined CSS for all elements because we know some margin and padding are already added by the browser to some elements. We need to remove that. So in the index.css file, we remove all predefined styles and we add star for all elements, and inside this, first we set the margin to 0, padding to 0 and box sizing to border box. These are all CSS concepts that I think you already know. Save this file, and after that, in the app.jsx file, which is our root component, we remove all code and we write RAFCE for adding the boilerplate code. In app.jsx file, we will add our application's components because this is the main entry point for the application's component hierarchy. Now first of all, in this div, we add one header tag for our header section. App_header. Remember, we have to use class name at the place of class. And also, here I am using snack case for writing all CSS classes. You can use whatever you want to. After that, we add one main tag for our main section and pass class name to app_main. Now inside this main section, we want to add three sections. So we write a section and add class name, task column, and we duplicate this code 2 more times. Also, in this div, we add here class name to app. And that's it. Now let's add CSS for this layout. So at the top, we import in quotes period slash for the current folder and app.css. This is a step almost all beginners or even experienced developers forgot to add. So before we add CSS to any components, please make sure we import that CSS file at the top of the component, because without that, our CSS will not apply. Save this file, and now let's open the app.css file, and let's remove all the styles. We don't need this, and at the top, we add .app, and inside it, we have to simply divide it into sections. So for that, we use grid. So write display to grid and grid template rows because we want to define rows, 150 pixel for header section and auto for main section. Save this file and let's see what we get. Oh, sorry, we forgot to add our app component as root component. So in main.jsx file, at the place of this create to do, we write app and also remove these both imports, we don't need it anymore. Save the changes, and here we get just header because we didn't add anything in our main tag. So back to VS Code, and in task column section, we add section 1, after that section 2 and section 3. Save the changes and see, here we get these 3 sections in the main section. Now we want to display this task section one by one in column. So for that, we will use flex. So in the app.css file, we add .app_main, and inside this, we write display flex for apply flexbox and also for setting this section in row. After that, we set justify content to space evenly to align these sections. And we also add some padding to 20 pixels for top bottom and 8% for right and left. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our section in center. Let's verify that using inspect. So right click on this section and go to inspect. See, here our section is in center. Now we want to make this section large enough so they cover the space. So we add new class task column and we define width to 33.33%. And for now, let's add background color to tomato. And at last, we add some margin to 20 pixels. Save the changes and take a look. See, here our section covers the width. Now in the next lesson, we will build our header form. So as we know that React works on component-based approach, and here in our application we didn't create any components. So let's start with our first component for our add task form. Before that, let's remove these both components. We don't need them. And we create a new component called taskform.jsx. Good. Now tell me what we do first in component. Right, we add boilerplate by using rafce. Now open app.jsx file. We cut this header tag and paste it into our task form component. Now at the place of this header text, first we want to add form, and inside this form, first we add input with type text and give it a class name to task_input and also placeholder to enter your task. Now after that, we have to add div tag with class name to task_form_bottom_line. After that, we have to add couple of tag buttons. So we add button with class name tag, and inside this we pass HTML. Now let's duplicate this line 3 more times and we change this text to CSS. After that, JavaScript and React. I am going little faster for this designing and CSS part because this is our simple HTML and CSS. I think you already know about that styles. I can give you all styles, but that is not fair because if you are working in React, you also have to write HTML and CSS. So after that, we add select input for drop down and add class name to task_status. And inside this, we add an option tag with the value to do and display text to do. Second option, value to doing and pass here also doing. And third option, value to done and here also done. And at last, we add button with type submit, class name to task_submit, and we write here plus add task. Save this file, and now let's display this component in app component. So open app.jsx file and we simply add here angle bracket task form and see VS Code auto suggests this component. Select this and press enter or tab and see our component auto imported at the top. Now make sure we close this component tag, otherwise we will get a compilation error. Or we can use here self-closing element. Good. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our form. Now in the next lesson, we add styles for this form component. So let's add styles for this form component. So for adding styles, here we create a new file called taskform.css. Now you might ask why we need to create separate file for this component. Can we add the styles in app.css file? And the answer is yes. We can add styles in the app.css file. And that's what some developers do. But that is not the right approach because currently we have only one component. But imagine if we have 5 to 10 components and we add our all styles in same file, then for changing the particular styles, we have to find the CSS in that single file. And that will be hard and also stressful. So that's why we define each component styles in separate CSS file. So let's first of all import in quotes period / taskform.css. Save these and let's add this file. So first of all, we want to move this whole form at the center. So we add .app_header and inside this, first we set display to flex and align items to center, which will set our form vertically center, and justify content to also center, which will set our form horizontally center. And at last, we add border bottom to 1 pixel, solid, has DC, DC, DC. Save these and take a look. See, our form is in the center. Now let's add styles for this input box. So .task_input and in curly brackets, font size to 20 pixel, font weight to 500, background color to has F9, 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 color to black, border to 1 pixel, solid, and color to has DF, E3, E6. After that, border radius to 5 pixel, padding to 8 pixel and 12 pixel, margin bottom to 15 pixel, and width to 100%. Save these and see our input is ready. Now we want to make this form large. So here we add .app_header, angle bracket, we target form, and inside this, we set its width to let's say 40%. Save this and see our form width is good now. Now let's add styles for these tags. But before that, we need to separate these tags with this drop down and add task button. So in task form component, we wrap this all tags with div tag and we wrap another part with another div. Save this file and in the taskform.css file, we add .taskForm bottom line and inside these curly brackets, we just add df and see it suggests display flags. These are small tricks which I learned with the experience of creating many applications. After that, we add align items to center and justify content to space between. Save these and see our tags and these two are separate. Now let's add style for these tags. So we write .tag and in curly brackets, first we add font size to 14 pixel, font weight to 500, background color to has F9, 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 border 1 pixel, solid, has DF, E3, E6, border radius to 5 pixel. After that, padding 2 pixel for top bottom and 10 pixel for left right, margin right to 10 pixel and cursor to pointer. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our tag styles. Now let's add CSS for drop down. So write .task_status and inside this we add font size to 16 pixel, font weight to 500, border to 1 pixel, solid has 999, border radius to 5 pixel, after that width to 120 pixel, height to 40 pixel, and padding to 0 and 5 pixel. Save these and see our drop down is also ready. Now last style for this submit button. So back to VS Code and write .task_submit, and inside this, first font size to 16 pixel, font weight to 500, background color to has 6457 F9, color to white which is has FFF, border radius to 5 pixel, height to 40 pixel, after that padding to 3 pixel and 13 pixel, margin left to 10 pixel, border to none, and cursor to pointer. This is very basic styles. I don't want to waste your precious time by explaining these styles. If there are some important styles, then surely I will explain you that. Save the changes and take a look. Here we zoom out a little bit and see, now our form looks pretty nice. Just one thing, I want to change this placeholder color because it looks little dark. So back to VS Code, and after this input style, we add .task_input :placeholder, and inside this curly brackets, we add color to has 686868. Save the changes and take a look. See, now it looks nice. So in the previous lesson, we create our form component, and in that component, we can see we have this button tag which we are using multiple times, and also when we create TaskCard, we will also use that tag button. So it is better to store single tag in different component. So let's copy this single button tag, and in this component folder, we create a new component called tag.jsx. Write RAFCE for boilerplate, and now here we simply paste that button. Now as we create new component for this tag, let's also create separate file for its CSS. So we create another file called tag.css, and as we know, before writing CSS, we need to import it in this component. So import /tag.css. Save this file. Good. Now open taskform.css file, and we cut this tag style from here. Save this and paste it into our tag.css file. Save this. Now let's add this tag component in task component at the place of tag buttons. So we write angle bracket tag and select the auto suggestion. It will auto import tag component. Now we can remove all these buttons and duplicate this tag component 3 more times. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get this 4 HTML tag button. Now you might ask, how can we change the button text? And that's the topic of next lesson. Now let's see how we can change the name of this tag button. So for that, we have concept of props in React. So first of all, what is props? Props stands for properties, and props are arguments passed into React components. In simple words, props are used to pass variable in React components. Let's see this practically. Now first of all, let's close this all files by right click on the file name and select close all. Now let's open form component. If you wonder how I am opening these files, so just press Ctrl+P or Command+P, and write here file name which we want to open and hit enter. See, without using mouse, we can open the files, and these are little productivity hacks which developers use. Now here we want to pass different tag name for this tag component. So here, as we add attributes in HTML elements, here we can also add attributes in component. So we pass name equals to, and here we want to pass tag name. So we add quotes, and inside this, we add HTML. Here, I want to clear one thing, we can give whatever name to this attribute. It's totally on us. For example, here we can pass tag name or anything. And by using this attribute name, we will access this value in that component. I know this is little confusing, but don't worry, watch this complete lesson and your all doubts will clear. For now, let's comment out these other 3 tags, select them and press Ctrl+/ or Command+/. So, here we pass our attribute. Now let's see how we can access this attribute value inside our component. Save this and open tag.jsx file. Now for accessing the props value, we can simply pass here props as an parameter on this component function. This props is object which contains all values of attribute which we set in tag component. So we simply console.log props and add here props. Save the changes and take a look. Open up console and see, here we get this object which have tag name property and its value. Let's print this value for our tag button. So here at the place of this HTML, we add curly brackets because we are writing JavaScript expression, and inside this we write props.tagName. Save the changes and see, here we get HTML. Now let's add 3 other tags. So back to our component and we remove comment from these tags by using Ctrl+/ or Command+/. And here we pass tag name, CSS, after that tag name to JavaScript, and at last tag name to React. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get these tags with different tag name. And that's how we pass attributes for components. So let's quickly recap all about props. So props is a way to a child component. In our case, task form is our parent component, and tag, which is inside this parent component, we call it as child component. And we want to pass data from task form component to tag component. So we simply pass attribute of tag name, and here we pass string value. But we can also pass arrays, objects, or even functions in the props. After that, for accessing the value of these props, we add props parameter in this component function, and we get our data into this child component. Simple as that. Now let's build each output list column. Here we can see that in our design, just we have to change the title of the column and emoji. But the structure of all these columns are same. So we can build component for the column and then reuse that component. And that's how we need to think about when we are working on React, because React is based on component structure. So let's create a new component called taskColumn.jsx. Inside this, we add boilerplate, and in app.jsx file, we simply cut this task column section and paste it in our task column component. Now first of all, in this column, we want to add title. So we create s2 tag and we write to do. Now as we know, we have here image. So open up resources folder, and inside this, we have assets folder. Now simply drag all images from this folder and drop it in our project assets folder. Now let's see how we can add image in React because it is little different from what we do in HTML. So we add image tag into this h2 tag, and here we cannot add relative image path. It will not work. So for adding any image, whether it is JPG, PNG or even SVG, first we need to import that image at the top. Because as we know, React uses bundler like Webpack to bundle all the code and assets which are used in the application. And when we import image file in our component, then bundler knows to include the image in the bundle. So that's why we need to import image. So we write at the top, import to do from, here we go one folder up, assets, and import direct-hit.png. Now in this image source, we add curly brackets and add our to do. Now you might ask, what is inside this to do? So this is nothing but just a path of our image which placed by bundle. Let me show you. So before return, we simply console.log to do. Save the changes and take a look. Oh, it looks mess. So first of all, let's remove this props console. Open tag.jsx file and remove this console.log line. Save the changes and we get nothing because we need to add our task column component in our app component. So back to VS Code, and in our app component, we add task column component and see auto import works. Save the changes and take a look. And see, here we get the path of our image. Also, we can directly add URL in the source, but this is how we add local images in React. Now let's add style for this image and title. So in this image tag, we add class name to task column icon. And also for this heading, we add class name to task column heading. Save this file and let's create separate file for our task column styles called taskcolumn.css. The reason why we always give it a same name as our component name because just by looking the file name, we can know this file contains CSS of this task column component. So let's first of all import taskcolumn.css file at the top of our component. Save this and now let's add some CSS. So first of all, we want to make our image small. So we write .task column icon and inside this we write width to 30 pixel, margin right to 5 pixel. Save this and our icon looks perfect. But this text and icon is not vertically centered. And also let's remove this tomato background. So we add .task column heading and inside these curly brackets we add display to flex and align items to center. Save this and let's remove that tomato background from app.css file. So open that file and remove this background property. Save the changes and take a look. See, now our title looks nice. Now let's replace these two sections with our task column component. So head over to app.jsx file and we remove these both sections and simply add two more task column component. Save the changes and take a look. See, we get 3 sections. Now here is a little exercise for you. Simply, we need to change the title of these 2 columns. Don't worry about changing this image, just try to change these headings. So I hope you solved this exercise. And if you can't solve this, then don't worry, at least you tried that. And that is the important thing. Now let's see the solution of this exercise. So here, we have to use props because we want to pass data from parent component to child component. So we pass here props title to to-do, second title to doing, and last title to done. Save this file and let's access these props in task column component. So at this component function, we pass props as parameter and we simply replace this to do with curly brackets and props.title. Also, let's remove this console, we don't need that. Save the changes and take a look. See, we get titles. So now I think you have clear understanding of how to use props. Now let's see how we can change these icons. So for that, we also use props. Let me tell you the logic. So first, we import all three images in this app component and we will pass that as a props. So at the top, we first import to-do icon from period / assets and direct hit.png. After that, import doing icon from assets and glowing star.png. And at last, we import done icon from assets and check mark button.png. Now let's pass these icons using props. So here we write icon equals to and we use curly brackets. Can you tell me why? Right, because we are writing JavaScript expression and we pass to do icon. Similarly, icon equals to doing icon and after that icon equals to done icon. Save this file and in the task column component, at the place of this to do, we simply write props.icon. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get these icons. You can see how simple React is. At the beginning, almost all developers scared by React. Even I also scared from React. But with practicing and creating more application, we learned React fast. So don't worry about that. Just practice your skills and with that, you will also master React. Now here, in our component, we can see whenever we want to access any props, we have to write here props.title and props.icon. But that looks little bit ugly. So we can use object destructuring for that. So here we write const object equals to props. And inside this object, we simply pass here our property names, title and icon. Or we can even simplify this by directly adding this object at the place of these props. This both works the same. So most common, we use this method, remove these lines, and also at the place of this props.icon, we write icon, and also here we write title. Save the changes, and it works the same as before. Now in the next lesson, we build our last UI part, which is TaskCard. So let's build a new component called TaskCard.jsx. And also, we create a new CSS file called TaskCard.css. Now in our TaskCard component, let's add boilerplate for this component using RAFCE. And at the top, we simply import TaskCard.css file. So we don't need to worry about that. Now let's add elements for this card. So at the place of this div, we can write article with class name TaskCard. You can also use div, but I like to use semantic tags. Now inside this, first we create one paragraph for adding task details and class name to task_text. And inside this, we simply write this is sample text. Now in the next line, we need tags at the left side and delete button at the right side. So we create one div here with class name TaskCard bottom line. And inside this, we add two more div. One with class name TaskCard tags. And second, class name with task delete. First div, we add our tag component. See, auto import does not work. So at the top, we import tag component from tag module. And let's add this component in our card. Now we simply pass here name props to, let's say, HTML. Let's duplicate this tag and change name to CSS. Done. Now let's add image in this task delete. And for adding image, at the top we have to import image. So import delete icon. From, we go one folder up, assets, and delete.png. And in the image source, we pass curly brackets, delete icon, and also class name to delete icon. Save this file, and now let's add this component into task column. So open up task column component. So here, after our heading, we add task card component, and see, now auto import works. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get our elements. Now let's add styles for this card. So our card looks like real card. So in TaskCard.css file, we write .taskCard, and in the curly brackets, first we add width to 100%, mean height to 100 pixel, border to 1 pixel, solid has DC, DC, DC. Next, border radius to 10 pixel, padding to 15 pixel, and margin to 15 pixel for top and bottom, and 0 for left and right. After that, we add styles for text. So we write .task text, and in the curly brackets, we add font size 18 pixel, font weight to 600, margin bottom to 15 pixel. Save the changes, and I don't see any difference because of this giant icon. So let's add styles for that. So we add .task_delete, and inside this, we write width to 35 pixel, height to 35 pixel, border radius 100% for making it complete circle. Now we want to set delete icon at the center of this div. So we add display flex, align items to center, justify content also center, cursor to pointer, and transition to all 0.3 second, ease in and out. This is for adding little smooth animation. Now let's add hover effect for icon background. So .task_delete hover, and we just want to change the background color to has EB. Now after that, let's make our icon small. So .delete icon, and inside this, we add width to 20 pixel. Save the changes and take a look. Fine. Now here we need to make these two divs in single line and place them left and right corner. So back to VS Code, we add here .taskCard bottom line, and inside this, we write display to flex, align items to center, and justify content to space between. Save these, and see, we get our card. Now let me show you one little trick which I used a lot. So currently, this delete icon looks too much dark. So in the delete icon CSS, we add opacity to 50%. And also, we add here transition, all 0.3 second, ease in out. And after this, we add .task, delete, hover, space, .delete icon, and we make opacity to 80% because we want to increase this icon opacity when someone even hovers circle. Save the changes and take a look. See, now our card looks nice. Now from next section, we are starting to add functionality for this application, which is the main purpose of this course. I know I write little fast CSS, but that is because we are here for learning React. If in React course we learn CSS, then some of you might don't like that. And also, I am writing this CSS fast because I practiced this application before recording this course, so don't confuse by that. And if you are continuously watching this course, then please take 10 to 15 minutes break and get some fresh air. I will see you in the next section. Welcome to the section 5 of the Ultimate React course. In this section, we will complete our first project, which is task track application. We understand the basic of functionality, handling forms, selecting tags, and then adding tasks by their property, implement delete functionality, and also we will learn second most important hook of React, which is useEffects. After completing this section, your confidence of creating React application will increase. So I am very excited about this and hope you are too. So let's dive into this section. Now before we start adding functionality in our application, first of all, let's understand the logic of this application. So here, first we create array of tasks which have all tasks. Now each task is the object with three properties. First, task itself. After that, we have status of task which can to do, doing or done. And third, we have tags, which is the array of selected tags. So when user add new task, we add new task object with these three properties. And then we will show them in task column. Simple as that. So first of all, we are going to handle this form. Handling the form means here we have to get user input values like the text, task status, and selected tags. If we don't have these details, then how can we store that details? So open up task form component, and do you remember what we will use to get user input? Right, it is useState hook. So here at the top, we import useState hook, and inside our component, at the top, we create state variable called task and set task, and as a default value, we pass here empty string. Now when something change in our input, we simply set that value in this task state. So here, we pass event called onChange, and inside this event, we have event object, arrow function, and here we simply call set task. Now as we know that whatever value we pass in this set task function, it will be the value of our task state. So e.target.value. Now let's verify we are getting our task or not. So simply console.log this task. Save the changes and take a look. Write something in this text box and see we are getting the input value. Now at the place of writing this expression here, we can write it in separate function. So we pass here function name, handle task change, and inside this we pass this event object. Now let's define this function. So const handle task change equals to, here we get our event object which we pass from here, arrow function, and inside this we set task to event.target.value. Save the changes and see it works the same as before. So we can write this code in both methods. Now here we can even make this code shorter. So at the place of this expression, in React we can directly pass our function name, which is handle task change. This both works the same. But remember, we have to use here arrow function syntax, otherwise this will not get event object. So we get the value of our input. Now let's see how we can get value of this drop down. So as we do for this input, same we do with that drop down. So first of all, we create one more state variable for storing the value of current state. So write useState and pass here status and set status, and as a default value we pass here to do, because by default if user don't select any value, then we add status to do. Now in this select tag we add here event called onChange, and inside this we pass new function reference handle status change. Now let's also define this function. We can also duplicate this function, and at the place of this name we write our new function name handle status change, and at the place of this set task we write set status, and that's it. Let's verify that works or not. So here we also add status in the console. Save the changes and take a look. Write something and we can see by default we get to do as status. Now let's change value from drop down and see, here we get that value. So it's working. Now here is one problem. As we can see, for each value we have to create here state variables, and also we have to define separate function for handle change, and that's a lot work. So you might ask, is there any shortcut trick for that? And the answer is yes. There is one little trick which we see in the next lesson. So currently in our form we have only 2 form fields. But imagine if we have 5 to 6 fields and you create state variable for each input, and that makes our code messy and hard to manage. So let's see how to handle multiple inputs using single onChange function. So in previous lesson, we create individual state variables for form fields, and then in each handle change function, we set that value to our state variable. But in this method, we create only one state variable for all input fields. Let me show you. So let's comment out this code, and at the top we create a new state variable called task data and set task data, and now as default value we pass here object, and in that object we have multiple properties in key value pair. So we add task to empty string and status to do. Now let's create a new function handle change equals to arrow function, and we will call this function on every input's onChange event. So in our input field we write here handle change. Now let's simply copy this onChange event and paste it in our select tag. So whenever we type or change the value in any of these fields, only this handle change function will run. Now most important step, and without this step our this method will not work. So the step is, we have to add all properties as its name attribute from our state object. Let me show you what I means. So for our task input, we want to store its input value in this task property. So in our input tag, we add here name attribute equals to task. Now for our status dropdown, we want to set its value in this status property. So we add in this select field name attribute to status. Make sure we write the same name as we write in the task data object. Now inside this handle change function, we write our main logic. So here we pass this E as event object for all these fields. And let's simply console.log this e.target. Save the changes and take a look. See, when we type in task input, we get this task input, and when we select value from drop down, we get that select tag. So our main logic is, when we type in form field, first we get that field name and value, and with that name, which will be the same as our task data property, we replace its value by current value. I know this sounds little complicated, but it's not. Let's see these, and after that your all doubts will clear. So we create here name variable equals to e.target.name, and we create another variable value equals to e.target.value. And let's console both these variables. Save the changes and take a look. See, we get field name and its value when we type in this input fields. Now we just have to set this value inside our state variable related to its property name. So we write here set task data, and we get here previous values by this previous parameter. This previous value is same as our current task data value. Now in this arrow function, we return object, and first of all, we return all previous value using spread operator. Now we only need to update field with its value. So whatever we return from this callback function, that will be the value of our state variable. Now here we know we can access object property by using square bracket and pass this name variable inside it and colon its value. Now if we write anything inside task input, then first this will return all previous properties, and then we find property task and replace its value with the task field value. Simple as that. Let's console.log this task data variable and see if we get values or not. Save the changes and take a look. See, when we update any field, we get its value in our state object. So it's working. Now we can make this code even shorter by using object restructuring. So we write e.target, and by using object restructuring, we fetch a name and value variable. So these two lines are same as this one line code. So we remove these two lines. Now we want to console this task data object when we click on Add Task Submit button. So we create here new function called handle submit, and inside this function we simply move this console. Now in the form tag, we pass on submit event, and we pass here handle submit function. Now you might ask, can we pass that function in onClick event of this button? And the answer is yes. You can also pass this function on onClick event. But why we pass that function in onSubmit? So the reason is, when someone writing in the input box and then press enter, and also when someone click on submit button, in these both cases, this handle submit function will run. If we only pass that function in onClick event, then it will only work on button click. Save the changes and take a look. Write some task and select the drop down value and click on submit. See, for just a second we get the value, but after that our page gets refreshed because it's the default behavior of form. So whenever we submit the form, this handle submit function will run and then it refreshes the page. We have to stop this. So we add here this E as event object, and write e.preventDefault. This function will prevent form defaults behavior. Save the changes and take a look. Fill this form and see, here we get these details. So let's quickly recap this trick. First of all, at the place of creating multiple use state, we create single state variable which is object, and in that object we will add properties name and their default value. Now for getting the form field name, we will pass name property exact same as this object properties name. After that, we will pass one single function for all form fields on change event. And inside this function, first we get name and value attribute from event object, and then we replace the current value of our task data object. Simple as that. So that's how we manage multiple form fields in React using shortcut method. You can see, just by using 2 lines of code, we can set values in our object. Now let me show you something interesting. We simply here duplicate this console task data and move it outside in our component. Now one of the most arising question which all React beginners ask me is, when we do console.log, why we are seeing all data twice? Should we did something wrong? And when I was learning React first time, I also asked the same question. And the answer is no. You are not doing anything wrong. It is happening because of React strict mode. So in our project, open up main.jsx file. Here we can see React wrap our application with this react.strict mode component. So for now, let's comment out this strict mode component, save the changes and take a look. And see, here we get our data one time. So it's confirmed that is because of React strict mode. But why we need this strict mode? So React strict mode is a tool provided by React that helps developers write better quality code by highlighting the potential problems during development. When we wrap our application with React.strict mode, it activates additional checks and warnings that will help you to identify issue before they cause problem in production. For example, it will check for not supported or deprecated React APIs and components, unsafe state updates, potentially unnecessary re-renders, and that's why it render our application twice. So it's better to enable strict mode for our application. Let's remove these comments and enable strict mode for our application. Save the changes and take a look. See, again we get 2 data objects. So in React 18, strict mode is by default turned on and React renders each component twice. So that's how strict mode works in the development process. When we deploy our application for production, this strict mode will not added and that will render our components only once. So don't worry about that. Let's also remove our console.log line. Now in the next lesson, we will see implementation of tag selection. Now let's implement the tag selection functionality. But before that, let's remove this comment out code. Now in our task data variable, we add another property called tags and pass empty array as default value. So when we select, we will add that tag into this array. And if that tag is already in this array, then we will remove that tag. Simple as that. And this is my trick to implement any logic in programming. Should I give you this trick? Let me give you. So the trick is, whenever we want to add any functionality, describe that functionality in human language. And that's it. That's how you can crack the logic of any functionality. So first of all, here we create a new function called select tag, arrow function, and this function will run when we click on any of the tag. So we have to pass function inside this tag component. How can we do that? Right, by using props. So here, pass props called select tag and pass here our function name, which is select tag. Here we are using the same property name as our function name because we don't need to worry about keeping the new name. You can write here any name, it's totally up to you. Now let's copy these and paste it for all tag components. Save these, and now let's open this tag component, and here at the prop we can destructure object and get here tag name and select tag. Now let's remove these props, and also here we pass onClick event and we simply pass this select tag here. And that's it, our select tag function will run on this each tag click. Now let's write our logic for select tag function. First of all, question is, how can we get the current selected tag? Because without knowing the tag name, how can we write any logic? So in the tag component, we can pass this tag name as argument of this select tag function. But we can't call this function here because then our function will run only once. So for solving that issue, we can pass here arrow function, and inside this, we can call this select tag function and pass tag name as argument. Save this file, and in the task form component, we get here tag as parameter and simply console.log this tag. Save the changes and take a look. See, when we click on this tag button, we get this tag name. But our form also gets submitted because we are getting the task data object here. See? So let's solve that. So open up tag component. We have to simply pass here button type to button because in all browsers except Internet Explorer, default type of button is submit, and that's why our form gets submitted. Save these and see, now we only get tag name. Now our next task is we want to store this tag into tags array. So in select tag function, first of all we write if condition, and here we want to check our tag is already available in tags array or not. So we write task data dot tags. Now here we use sum method, and inside it we get here each item, arrow function, and we have to pass here condition item is equal to tag. Let me explain you this expression. So this sum method will return true or false value. So we are checking here each item of our task data dot tags array, and here we compare it with our tag name. For example, we select HTML tag, then this expression will check each value of these tags, and if HTML is available in that array, then it will return true, otherwise false. Simple as that. So what we will do if tag is already available? Right, we will remove that tag from that array. So we write task data dot tags dot filter. Now also in this we get each item, arrow function, and we pass here condition item not equals to tag. Now as we know, this filter method will get items which will pass this condition and return a new array. So we store that in variable called filter tags. Now we have to update our tags value by this new filter tags. So we write set task data. First we get here previous value, arrow function, and inside it we return here object, and first we add all previous values using spread operator, and we simply override tags to filter tags. Now we add else condition, which means our tag is not available in this tags array. So we can directly add that tag in our array. So we write set task data, and also inside this we get previous value, arrow function, and here we return object, and here we add all previous values using spread operator, because without that our task and status will also get replaced. And after that we override tags, and here we pass our current tag. Now let's see if this works or not. So simply console.log taskdata.tags. Save the changes and take a look. Select any tag and see we get that tag here. Now again click on that tag. See, it's gone. Now here is a one bug. Select one tag and then select another tag. You can see our previous tag is gone. So why this is happening? Let's find that. So here in else condition, we directly replace all tags value with the current tag, and that's why our old tag will replaced by new tag. So here we also use spread operator previous.tags, which has all old tags, and simply add new tag at the end. I intentionally do this mistake because I want to show you the importance of these previous values. Save the changes and take a look. Select the tags and see, it's working. Now when we select our tag, we can't show any effect on our page, and that's the bad user experience. So to display the selected tag, we only need to check whether that tag is available in our tags array or not. So here we create a new function called check tag, arrow function, and now inside this we simply want to return true or false for the tag. So do you remember which method we used to check? We have already done that in the select tag function, which is using sum method. So we simply return here task data.tags.sum. Inside it we get each item, arrow function, and we check item is equal to our tag, and we get that tag from the parameter. Now we pass this true and false value for each tag. So scroll to the tag component. We pass here one more props called selected, and here we call check tag function, and inside this we pass our tag name in double quotes. Note that we write the same name as we pass in tag name. Save this file, and in the tag component we get here selected props. Now using these selected props we can add selected effect. So here we will use inline styles because we want to set different color for the HTML, CSS, JavaScript and React tag. So for that we create one variable called tag style, and we declare that as object, and inside this object we add key value pair. Let me show you. First we pass HTML, and here as a value we pass object with background color property and value to has FD A821. Now you might ask why we add here object. So the reason is we know that in inline styles we have to pass style object. So we can directly add this object by tag name. Now let's add styles for other tags. So duplicate this key value pair 4 more times, and here we add CSS and change background color to has 15D4C8. Now for JavaScript we change background color to has FFD1-C. And for React, background color to has 4C, DA, FC. Note that write the same name of tag that we pass in that tag name props, otherwise it will not work. Now you might think why we add one more key value pair. So this last one for the default background for not selected tags. So we add default and background color to has F9, F9, F9. Now let's add styles according to conditions. So we add here style equals to curly brackets because we are adding JavaScript expression, which is if selected is true, we add that tag style. So tag style, and in a square bracket we pass tag name. Else we add tag style dot default. Simple as that. Save the changes and take a look. See, when we select the tag, its background color will change, and after that back to normal. Now with other tags, we don't see these styles because we didn't pass selected props for them. So back to task form component. Here we select this selected props and copy it from here and paste it here, and we change tag name to CSS. Now same as we do for JavaScript, and also we do the same for React. Save the changes and take a look. See, now our all tags have this selected effect. I know this inline style object is confusing you, but if you revise this code, you will understand that properly. After that, you will see how simple it is to implement this selecting functionality. Just you have to think in day-to-day language for everything on Google. If you try something and stuck, then use that as a tool. Now here we have all details about task in this task data variable. So in the next lesson, we will see how can we display that task in our section. Now let's add our main functionality of this application, which is adding task. Without that feature, our application is not useful. So here we are going to store all our tasks in single array. And by using the status property, we will display them in each section. We make that array as a state variable because when we add the task or delete the task, we want to see the changes on our DOM. Now the question is, in which part of our application we need that array? First of all, we need to access that array set function in our task form component. Because when we submit our task, we want to add that in this array. And after that, we need to display that array state in this task column component. So we need the task array in these two components, task form and task column. So we have to create that state variable in this app component. So we can pass that as props in these two components. So at the top, we import useState from React library. And in the component, we write useState and pass variable name, task and set task. And we pass empty array as a default value. Now let's pass this set task function as a props in this task form component. Save this file and hold Ctrl or Command and just click on the component name. It will lead us to that component file. Now here at the parameter, we destructure props. Component, we don't need that, but that is a good practice which helps us in future. So here we get set task, and in the handle submit function, we will set our task data in the set task function. So at the bottom, we write set task. Now here also, we get first previous values, arrow function, and return here array, and first we add all previous values using spread operator. And after that, we simply add task data object. And that's it. Now let's zoom out little bit my VS Code with Ctrl and minus or Command and minus. Save this file and let's verify what we get. So back to app.jsx file and simply console.log task, task. Save the changes and take a look. We write this and we can see we are getting tags array. So let's clean this console. Open task form component and here we remove this console tags line. Save this and let's refresh the page. Right, this is task 1. We select tags and we select status to doing and click on add task. See, here we get this task. Now let's add one more task. Select tags, status to do and add task. See, it get that also. So that's working. Now let's display those tasks in this column. So in app component, here in this task column component, we pass first task as props and after that, we have to filter those tasks by status. For example, if status is doing, then we only display task which status is doing. So we pass here status equals to do. Now let's copy this both props and pass here in this task column. And we simply change status to doing. And here also we paste these props and change status to done. Save these. Now in the task column component, we simply destructure here task and status. Now at the place of this static task card, we add here curly brackets task.map. Here we get each task and also index. And we simply add here condition task.status is equal to this status and then we return task component and inside it we pass key attribute for each unique item which is our index. This AND operator will only for true expression. So only if this condition is true, then we return this task card component. Otherwise, we don't get anything. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get two cards. One in to do and one in doing. Now we have to only change these details inside this card. So for displaying these details in our card component, we have to pass them using props. So here we add title equals to task.task. After that, tags equals to task.tags. Save this file and now let's display these two values in our card. So in card component, we destructure props here and get title and tags. Now at the place of this text, we write title and at the place of this tags, we add curly brackets and tags.map method. Here we get each tag and also index for passing it into key. Arrow function and we return here tag component and we pass key to index and tag name to tag. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get these details and tags. Now last thing, we want to show colorful tags. So do you remember we have selected property and by that we can add colorful tags. Let me show you. So here we pass just selected equals to true. And that's it. Save the changes and take a look. See, now our card looks really good. Also, if we want to pass any props value to true all the time, we can write only that prop name, same as we write disable attribute in HTML. Save these and see, it works the same as before. Now before we start implementing delete functionality, let's fix this little thing in our form. So when we add our task, these old details are still here. So if user want to add another tag, then they have to first deselect the tags, and that's not the good user experience. So when you create website for any client, you have to also thought yourself as the user of that application and figure out what problems or bugs are available in your application. So in task form component, we want to reset this form after we set our task data in the setTask function. Basically, we are resetting this task data object to the default value. So we write setTaskData, and inside this, we simply copy this default object and paste it here, and that's it. Save the changes and take a look. Submit the form and see, our text get reset, but this text box and this drop down is still same. Why is that happen? Let's find this out. So here, in this input element, we are not linking the value of our task to this input value. Let me show you what I means. So here, when something we change in this input, that input value will add in our taskData.task property. But when we change our taskData.task property, then how React will change the input value? We didn't do anything for that. Don't worry, this is very simple. So for that, we simply add here value attribute and in curly brackets taskData.task. And also in this select, we pass value attribute equals to taskData.status. And that's why we need to add value property, so it works both way. Save the changes and take a look. Write task, select tag, and also select status, and submit the form. And see, our form gets reset properly. Now let's see how we can delete task from here. So back to our app component, here we create function which will handle delete functionality. Now how can we delete a specific task? So here we know each task element has its unique index. So we pass here task index. Now inside this, we use filter method. So task.filter, here we get each task, and in second parameter, index, arrow function, and here we pass our condition. So we want to only take that task which index is not equals to task index. Now we know that this filter method returns a new array. So we simply store that in variable called new task. And after that, we set this new task in setTask function. Now our delete function is ready. We have to only make that function run on our delete click event. So we pass new props in these 3 task column components. Click here and hold Alt or Option and click here and here. That will create multiple cursor. And we simply write here handle delete equal handle delete and press escape. Save this file and now open this task column component, and here we get handle delete props and simply pass that in this TaskCard component. Handle delete equals to handle delete, and also we pass index equals to index because we need to pass that index in this handle delete function. And we can see that here we are passing nested props, which is this handle delete function. Save this file, and now in the TaskCard component, in the props, we get handle delete and index. Now in this div, we pass here event called onClick, and here we pass handle delete function. Now we have to pass index value in this handle delete function, otherwise our delete functionality will not work. So how can we do that? Right, we simply pass here arrow function. Save the changes and take a look. Click on delete icon and you can see how smooth that task gone. So that's how simple to implement delete functionality. Now here you might have question why we create delete function in our app component. We can't create that in task component. Yes, we can also create handle delete function in TaskCard component, but here you can see this handle delete function need task state and also set task function. If we create handle delete function in TaskCard component, then we have to pass this task and set task both as the props. And if we create handle delete in app component, which have both variables, then we have to pass only this handle delete function as props. So that's the reason. Now let's make our project little more interesting. So here we have task in our application. Now let's refresh our page and see our all task is gone. Because when we refresh the page, our application starts from the scratch, and that will define task to empty array. So how can we save our task even if we refresh the page? So the solution is we can store our task in the local storage. Now you might ask, what is local storage? Local storage is a feature in web browsers that allows web application to store data on the user's system. This data can be accessed later by the website even if the user closes the browser and opens it again. So we store all our tasks in local storage, which is different for each user, and after that in our app component we will pass that old task as default value. Let me show you. Here outside of this component we create one variable called old task, and now we want to get data from local storage. So we write here local storage dot get item, and inside this function we will pass our variable name which we want to access. Let's say task. Now let's simply console.log this old task. Save the changes and take a look. See, here we get null because we haven't stored our task in local storage. Let me show you the local storage. So click on these arrows and go to the application tab. Now here in this storage, we get local storage, and in this local storage, we have multiple website URL. For React, our endpoint is localhost :5173. So select that and see, here we get nothing. Now let's see how we can store this task in local storage. But let's first understand the logic of that. Imagine we write code for storing tasks in local storage. Now if we delete one task, then we also need to replace that task array in local storage. So if we have something that automatically runs when our task state change, then our problem is solved, right? So the good news is we have that feature in React for detecting the changes in state variable. We have one hook called useEffects, and that's the topic of next lesson. So let's first understand what is useEffect. UseEffect is used to perform side effects in our component. So what are side effects? Side effects are actions which are performed with the outside world. We perform a side effect when we need to reach outside of our React components to do something. For example, fetching data from API directly updates the DOM in which we use document or window object, or timer function like set timeout or set interval. These are the most common side effects in React. So to perform any kind of side effects, we need to use useEffect hook. Don't worry about this theory, let's see this practically. So to use any hook, we need to first import that hook from React library. So we write here useEffect, and now we can use it in the function component. So we call useEffect hook, which accepts two arguments. First, callback function, which is a function in which we write our side effect logic. This function will execute whenever something changes in this whole component. And second argument is dependencies, which is an array of variables and it's an optional argument. In simple terms, the first argument is what to run and the second one is when to run. So useEffect runs on every render, which means when the count changes, a render happens, which triggers another effect. But we can control that by dependencies. If you are familiar with class components, useEffect is the combination of component did mount, component did update, and component did unmount. Now useEffect has 3 variations. Don't worry, we will see each variation in details in upcoming section. But currently, let me tell you in very short. So first one, useEffect without any dependencies. So if we don't pass any dependencies, this callback function will run every single time when something changes in our component. Second, useEffect with empty array. So if we only pass an empty array, this callback function will run only one time when our component gets rendered first time. And third, useEffect with variables. So for example, if we pass here task variable, so when this task state change, only then this callback function run. And that's what we want to do here. So inside this callback function, we write local storage dot set item. Now at the first parameter, we pass our variable name, which is task. And at the second parameter, we pass our task array. But here, we have to convert this array into string format because local storage can only store strings as values. If we store directly array as a value, then it will automatically convert it into string, but then we can't access that later as an array. So we use here JSON.stringify method and pass our task array here. This function will also convert our array in the string format. The only difference is we can convert that string into array again and use it. Save the changes and take a look. Submit one task and we get that task here. Now let's see it is also storing in local storage or not. Open up local storage and here we see our new task. Now if we add another task, see our local storage gets updated. Now as we know, we store our array in string. So when we get that array, we have to convert that back in array. So back to our app component and at the place of this empty array, we pass json.parse and inside this, we pass this old task value. This function will convert our string in array. Save the changes and refresh the page. See, we don't lose our task. Delete one task and also try to refresh the page. See, we also get updated task, so it's working properly. Now here is one little bug. Open up local storage and if we delete this task array from here and after that we refresh this page, see, here we get this error because we can't find task in local storage. So to solve that, we pass here OR operator and here empty array. So if this expression returns null, then it takes an empty array as the default value. Save the changes and take a look. Now our application works well. Now our project is almost done. I add here some tasks for demo. Now we just need to change our font styles for our application. So there are two most popular ways to add fonts in React application. First one is we have offline font file in our system, and also we can use CDN link for adding fonts. So let's see the easiest way, which is using CDN link. We will see offline method later in this course. Don't worry about that. So in this project, we are going to add Montserrat font. So head over to browser, open a new tab, and search Montserrat Google font. Open this first link. Now on this website, we get a lots of font for free. Also, we have another website, Font Squirrel. You can use whatever you want to. It totally depends on you. Here, we can select different font styles which we want to use. So select 400, 500, 600, 700, and 800. Now in this section, we have option. Simply select import section and copy this import statement, and in our index.css file, at the top, we paste this CDN link. Good. Now back to browser again and scroll down and copy this CSS for this font family. And in our index.css file, we add here styles for body, and inside it, we paste our font family. Save this file, and see, we get our styles and fonts. Now our application looks really amazing. So congratulations, you successfully complete your first project in React. I know you learned a lot from this, and also you can see it is not really hard to build application in React. It is really simple, just you have to learn the functionality and features of React. Don't worry about learning all concepts in one go, because that will overwhelm you. So learn some features and practice it, then again learn some features and again practice it. Practice is the key to success, and that should our main focus. Thank you so much for watching this mini course. I hope you learned a lot from this. And this is just a mini chunk from the Ultimate React course, which has almost 200 video lessons and bunch of exercises for practicing the React concepts. I hope you are excited to create another two projects, which is movie application and another advanced e-commerce project in which we will cover a lot of main concepts like routing the pages, searching products, filtering and sorting products data, pagination and infinite scrolling, user authentication and authorization like sign up, login and log out, and much more. So for watching my complete React course, you will get a link in the description box, and also I will drop it in pinned comment. So hopefully I will see you in this course.